This particular episode of my weekly Passion Life video blog is pre-recorded. I am in Africa as you are seeing this. If you saw my recording from last week, I asked you to pray specifically for the trip that I would be on in Africa. And as this is coming out and hitting your inbox right now, I am, Lord willing, in Africa, traveling through Liberia, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe. We're probably about halfway through the trip now. So please pray for us as we continue to face challenges. I know that we had a lot that we were anticipating on this trip. And so this is the time for you to continue to pray us through Africa. It is also going to release just a few days before the Sanctity of Human Life Sunday here in America. That's something that I will be missing while I am traveling through Africa. Normally on Sanctity of Human Life Sunday, I am in America. A lot of times have speaking engagements in churches or whatever. And I was asked to speak in my own church this upcoming Sunday, the 19th, the Sanctity of Human Life Sunday for 2025. But of course, being in Africa, I won't be there to do that. But they have another speaker coming in during the Sunday school hour of our church to speak to the adults. And there's going to be a representative from our local pregnancy help center here in Winston-Salem in our church service as they make a big deal out of the Sanctity of Human Life at our church. The Sanctity of Human Life Sunday is now in its 41st year. It first was invented or first was proclaimed, the Sanctity of Human Life Sunday, by Ronald Reagan during his presidency in 1994 in recognition of the fact that on that day, January 22nd, happened to be that year was the 11th anniversary of the legalization of abortion in America with the Roe v. Wade and the Doe versus Bolton decisions that were handed down on concurrent days. At that time, Ronald Reagan was asking American citizens to come together in places of worship and in their homes and remember and not forget the 15 million Americans who had passed away due to the injustice of abortion since Roe v. Wade legalized abortion through the Supreme Court in 1973. Again, it was in its 11th year at that time. And Ronald Reagan reminded us that we were poorer as a nation, not just for the people who were not there and not just for the innovations that would have come through their lives and the social enrichment that would have come through their lives, but we are poor as a nation for having gone through 11 years of being desensitized to the fact that we are diminishing the value of human life year over year as we make abortion something regular and acceptable. Praise God. Roe v. Wade stood as the law of the land for 49 and a half years. And Christians came together year after year, actually day after day, but year after year, especially around the Sanctity of Human Life Sunday, which is around the third Sunday of January each year. It's very close to the Martin Luther King weekend. It's very close to the original anniversary of the Roe v. Wade decision, which was handed down on a particular January 22nd of 1973. So it's around that time we make Sanctity of Human Life Sunday this year in 2025. It's on the 19th. Usually it coincides very closely with the March for Life, which is well known in Washington and D.C. This year, the March for Life will be held on the 24th, which I believe is a Friday. I think Bethany Hamilton is one of the keynote speakers for that particular this particular year's March for Life. It's going to be interesting to hear her, famous professional female surfer who was attacked by a shark and had her arm taken off while she was living in Hawaii. She's a very outspoken Christian and ardent proponent of life, and she'll be speaking at the Sanctity of Human Life March for Life. Keep that on your calendar. But here's what I would ask you to do in my absence as I continue to travel around Africa, where the Sanctity of Human Life Sunday is not a thing this upcoming weekend. I encourage you to pay attention. I encourage you to pay attention in your church to see how your church decides to deal with or not to deal with the Sanctity of Human Life Sunday that Sunday represents for us here this upcoming Sunday on the 19th. Will your church talk about it? Will your church invite speakers to come in and talk about it? Will they mention it in the sermon or in the announcements? Or will they talk about it as part of their missions initiative, the way that they partner with the local pregnancy help center if they do in your local area? Or are they afraid to talk about it because they're afraid of who might stop giving or who might stop coming or who might be offended? Our acknowledgement here at Passion Life is that it's difficult for pastors to talk about. Abortion is a difficult thing to talk about because it's so fraught both with politics and things that are tied to politics and just with past woundedness that pastors are paralyzed for the most part and don't know exactly how to address the issue. But that is not an excuse to not address the issue because it is so prevalent. It is so common. It is all around us. Society is talking about it. In our last election, it was one of the major issues that people went to their places of voting to cast make their voice heard on this particular issue. So there is no excuse for pastors not to be talking about this in church where it is a preeminent moral, biblical crisis in our society. So pay attention. See how your church deals with the Sanctity of Human Life Sunday being marked this upcoming weekend. If they don't speak about it at all, it is appropriate to ask your pastor why not. It is appropriate to send a letter to the elder board and just say, is this something that we really are intentionally letting pass by us? Or is this something that we have decided that we are not going to talk about, that we are going to keep our mouths silent about and let the culture be the ones to have the voice on the issue? On Friday, during the March for Life, which will be next Friday on the 24th, pay attention. Will you see coverage about the March for Life on your local news network, on national news networks? But largely, it is ignored year over year over year. The news organizations don't cover it, even though it is annually one of the largest gatherings of Americans during the year of that calendar year. Now, they've gotten a little smaller since Roe v. Wade fell, not because it's not as important, but because many people do feel like we kind of got what the initial March for Life was focused on. But ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we have a lot of work to do, especially at the state levels on making abortion unthinkable in our union. So the March for Life is still going strong. But if there are 300,000 or 400,000 people or 500,000 people, and there have been more than that at March for Life in years past, you would think that would be on the news. Pay attention. See if it is on Friday. See if you hear anything about it through your news organizations, your news channels. Most of them will want to ignore it. That's reprehensible. If you are not exactly sure how to bring this up with your pastor, if your church doesn't talk about it on Sunday, remember that we have materials made just for you to bring to pastors. Actually, before I show you this one, I want to show you this one. This one actually really appeals to pastors. And you can get this through our website on passionlife.org. This is the moral crisis of abortion and world missions. What's the connection between the two? This is an article that John Enser, our president, wrote for pastors at a missions conference where he was speaking last year. And it speaks about the abortion issue in language that pastors speak. It's theological, it's missiological, it's something that helps pastors feel like they have a place to put an anchor into and say, yeah, I think I can see it from this angle, I can talk about it from this angle. So this is a great resource to get and to give to your pastor if he is one that just doesn't know how to talk about abortion in church. Another one is this one about becoming an ambassador for Passion Life. This is something that you can put in your church, if with permission, of course, from your church staff, that gives lots of ideas of ways for people to get involved in Passion Life or in the Sanctity of Human Life movement, hosting a Storming the Strongholds event. This is one that I really want to bring attention to, and I think I'm going to in future versions of this video podcast. Have John or me or Tammy or Sarah or any one of our Passion Life staff members come to your town, your city, and speak to a group of people in your living room. People from your church, put out some cupcakes and invite 12 to 15, 20 people into your living room and just let us take the TV and tell encouraging stories about what God is doing around the world through the pro-life movement. We would be happy to come to your home and do this. And if we can, to speak with your pastor and to have lunch with them or to speak in your church, we'd be happy to do that. There are ways of developing church partnerships here. There are ways of introducing the work of Passion Life to your missions pastor or missions committee in your church. There are ways to rally at your state level There are all kinds of ideas of how to turn the pro-life movement from a theoretical, ideological movement into a dirt under the fingernails, trembling because they're tired, muscle workout type of way of getting involved with the pro-life movement, doing things, getting involved with actions that help women and families and babies get through the struggles and the crises that they are facing at the moment. These are ways that we would ask you to join us as you look forward to Sanctity of Human Life Sunday. Be very aware, be very cognizant of what you are hearing and not hearing. Be very cognizant of how freely the politicians talked about abortion over the last 6 months. And be very cognizant about how your pastor or the leaders in your church talk about abortion on this, the most obvious day of the year, for it to be easily worked into the forefront of what's going on at your church. If it's something that concerns you, whether or not your church is very involved in the pro-life movement, we have resources. We would love to come and talk with you. We'd love to come talk with your pastor. We'd love to pray with you. Reach out to us. This is what we exist for with our U.S. arm of what we do with Passion Life. Visit us on our Passion Life website at passionlife.org and spread the word during Sanctity of Human Life Week and month this year.